Hello everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to I Got My DNA Test Results Back by Gloom. This is a channel I'm only slightly familiar with. I looked a bit into her, and I guess she has an Asian and European background, but I'm not quite sure of her ancestry, but I imagine it should be interesting results. As usual, I'm always hopeful that she'll show the genetic matches. Very few people do show the genetic matches in these videos or even talk about them. From a genealogy standpoint, the genetic matches are the best part of this test by a mile, way beyond the admixture percentages that people, always just obsess about, in my opinion. But I'm not really going to say much else beyond that. Let's just go ahead and jump into the video.
Happy day and Gloom! And today I'm doing something that I'm very, very nervous for. I'm doing a DNA test. And the reason why I'm nervous is because my ethnicity, my background has been a subject of very aggressive debate in my family. And if it turns out that I'm not Malay, I'm going to be very, very upset because I identify with my Malay side. It's the side of me that I've embraced the most in my life.
Now with these DNA tests, I don't know if Malay is a population group that they read for. And this is one of the difficulties with DNA testing is a lot of people will have these preconceived notions of, I'm expecting to get this population group, this country specifically. Anything else will be completely crazy to me. The best way to go into it is understanding that you may not have your population group you're expecting to even be one of the options. For people that are going into this expecting a very specific percentage, or at least just a specific population group in their DNA, what they should do is look up the test they're taking and see what population groups do they have defined. When you do that, you can go and see and figure out whether or not they do have Malaysian as one. So as an example of what I was just talking about in terms of do they even read certain things, here's the list that MyHeritage has of the 42 ethnic groups that they're defining with DNA. So these are the population groups that you would expect to get. And when we do look under Asian, we do see that there's Malaysian mixed with Filipino and Indonesian. If she's taking the MyHeritage test, which I'm not sure which test she's taking, then if she is expecting Malaysian, then this would be the population group that we'd be expecting. And then even more, if they had a white paper that they released, which MyHeritage doesn't. Basically, the white paper has the statistical references of how accurate, in a sense, these tests are. So they do two types of performance on these population group tests: precision and recall. And I'm not going to go too in-depth into precision and recall in this video, but it's basically just something to help us measure how accurate things are, like I just said. And so when you have those precision and recall numbers connected to the specific population groups, if you're expecting one and it has very low precision and recall, then it may not be super surprising if you don't get that ancestry, even if you expected it, just because the precision and recall shows that they have a hard time or an easy time being able to accurately identify that population group. So let's just jump back in.
I didn't know that we didn't know. I just had a phone call with my mom, and it's inconclusive right now. My nene is... Nobody knows. Nobody knows what she is. After World War II, when the Axis took over Singapore, her family was actually murdered and she was orphaned. She was adopted. She actually doesn't have a birthday on her passport. It just says 1935. It doesn't even have a day. Not much is known about her. She could be Chinese, she could be Japanese, she could be a whole bunch of different things, but she did marry a Malay man and have my mom, so I at least know that I'm part Malay.
Yeah, so she'd be expecting at least a quarter Malay if it's one grandparent. The interesting thing being that if this is the grandmother she's talking about, if this is on her mother's side, we can, use the test she's taking to figure things out, presuming there's enough DNA matches in there from that grandmother's side of the family. But you can also do mitochondrial DNA testing, which tells you your purely matrilineal line. Granted, this is going back hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so the matches you get on that aren't quite as useful as Y-DNA matches or autosomal DNA matches. But doing that could actually help tell a bit about her background, at least that one specific line. So you can get an idea of, well, based on her mitochondrial DNA matches, where was that line coming from? And then you might get a better idea of, was she Malaysian? Was she something else? Yeah.
Right, Mom? I really want to be Malay, okay? I know that my dad is white, and I mean, I'm sure that his past is super interesting and stuff, but like, my Asian side is the side that I've always held on to. I just don't want my feelings to get hurt. By the way, my boring boyfriend Terry is also doing one. I'm sure he's gonna be like super European. Terry's ancestry composition, he's 30.8% British.
Gosh, it's so funny to me when I watch some of these videos that are like 5-6 years old, because you see the sites and it's like, man, it's crazy how much better looking the sites have gotten in just a few years. Like, looking at this, it just looks so old school.
And Irish, does that mean like 15 and 15, or just like that's a combined one?
Okay, wait, let's click on it.
No, what it means is that between the British and Irish, they share so much DNA that they can't actually decipher between them. They can't really distinguish between them DNA-wise. Although things are starting to get better nowadays. But whenever you see any of those compound ones, like French and German is one, they're doing that because they can't distinguish between those population groups, and trying to, there's a high margin of error.
Oh my God, you're the whitest guy I've ever seen in my...
Typical Northwestern European readings. This is something we see all the time on here. So, 30.8% British Irish, 24.6% Scandinavian, and then 23.7% French and German. Although that, I guess I don't always see that high of French and German with all Northwestern European readings. I feel like when you do see that high of French and German, you do usually find some sort of ancestry in France, Germany, or the Low Countries, Netherlands, Belgium, even Luxembourg, or maybe even some Southern European areas, especially like Italy and stuff, although more Northern Italy, I guess, technically. But you're basically not just looking at Scandinavia and the British Isles, which is very common with the Northwestern European, and then you still get French and German poking in there with that. But with his reading, that high of a French and German, as I built out the tree, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm definitely going to expect British and Irish, especially because they're getting that UK community, and then they have Sweden for the Scandinavian community, so I imagine he probably has actual Swedish ancestry. And then, like I said, with that French and German, very possibly finding something else in there. But then you see that huge, broadly Northwestern European chunk, 19.6%, and that's literally them saying, well, we can't really distinguish between any of the population groups within Northwestern Europe, so we're just going to lump it all in together. And while they do actually distinguish, because they have DNA that they've been able to distinguish, these broadly categories are the DNA that they just couldn't distinguish. But they knew, okay, well, this is definitely Northwestern Europe. We just can't tell, is it Scandinavia? Is it the British Isles? Is it, the Low Countries? All right, let's continue.
My life,
There's,
okay. 100% European.
Okay, I knew that.
Are your parents okay with the fact that you're dating me? Like, are they gonna be like, don't chink the chain, girl? Don't
That's racist.
No, I don't mean it like that. Are your parents gonna be like, you're 100% European? Like, don't mix it up.
Shouldn't I have predicted?
You should have predicted. We did this wrong.
Nice.
Okay, so 30% British and Irish, United Kingdom.
Yeah,
You can tell from the teeth.
I would have just said half and half, probably.
Smile.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible that he has equal amounts of British ancestry and Irish ancestry, but doing a DNA test is not going to tell you that through the admixture percentages. The DNA test is going to tell you if you're Irish or British or whatever your ancestry breakdown is by doing the DNA matches and building out your family tree using those DNA matches and getting past where the brick walls are in the paper trail.
You're Swedish.
I knew that.
You did?
Yeah.
French and German.
Ooh, didn't know that.
Ooh, he's got a little je ne sais quoi. What does that mean? Represented by people from as far west as Ireland, as far away as Norway, and as white as your ass.
Yeah, I mean, that gives a great example there. As far west as Ireland, as far north as Norway, as far east as Finland, and as far south as France, I'm assuming.
As our ancestors ventured out of Eastern Africa, you turned white as snow and started drinking tea.
You're going to get hate on this video, and I'm not going to help you with it.
There's nothing wrong with being white. I'm just a little bit surprised that you're the whitest person. You're the whitest thing in the world.
I feel like I see these Northwestern European style results all the time. Like when I was first starting the Reddit questions thing, it was like every other question was, why is my breakdown like this? And then it just typical Northwestern European.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that are 100% European. Next.
My brother is here with us today, and so I did the test, so he's also going to know, unless he was adopted, what his genetic breakdown is. What do you think we are, Jeff?
Okay, I think we're Malaysian, Italian, Irish, and British.
What about Chinese?
Probably Chinese too.
But, okay, so how important is it to you to be Malay?
Malay is all I know. If we're not Malaysian, then I have no idea.
The interesting thing is, even though they're going to be looking at Malaysian, which we didn't look if 23andMe does Malaysian, we looked at MyHeritage before to see, and they're doing 23andMe. I'm not going to look it up on my computer. I'm going to look it up on my phone. Looking up 23andMe's site right now, they do have Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, Myanmar, which includes Malaysian as part of their listing of populations that are part of this defined group. So it doesn't say Malaysian now. I don't know what it was 5 years ago. It may have actually said Malaysian or been different because they update these all the time. So it'll be interesting to see what it comes out. But if they do see that, will they be able to identify it? But even so, we're only going to be looking at expected, based on this story, 25% about. And we always say about because it's not a perfect recombination when you inherit DNA. You do get 50% of your DNA from your dad and 50% of your DNA from your mom, at least when we're talking about only autosomal DNA, so DNA from your autosomes. But that 50% that you're getting from your mom is not a perfect split between her parents, where you're getting, 25% from your grandpa and 25% from your grandma. You could be getting 20% from your grandpa and 30% from your grandma, or you could be getting 24 and 26, or, something like that. It's very rare that it's exactly 25%. So they could get, very low percentages in the teens, low teens even. Honestly, I don't, with how Asian readings are with these tests, it's even possible that they may get a lot of various types of Asian population groups because the site may just have difficulty in reading theirs. And especially 5-6 years ago, there's been a lot of studies that have expanded the DNA knowledge to make it so that population groups are much better. If they logged in now, their DNA results would have updated and will be very different, or at least slightly different.
I'm 25% Malay, 25% Italian, 25% British, and 25% Chinese.
Okay, so Malaysian grandparent, Chinese grandparent, and then on the European side, Italian and British grandparent. So with the British, we're probably going to see a Northwestern European mix. So it won't be surprising if she gets Irish reading, we know British and Irish are lumped together, but we won't be surprised if she gets Scottish readings, French, German readings, Scandinavian readings. And then with an Italian grandparent, then obviously Southern European or Italy may not be surprising, but it also may not be surprising to see Spain or even some sort of Western Asian, North African, because of the connections there. So, it'll be interesting to see what that breakdown really comes to. So let's look.
Which one of these?
25% Italian. I know for a fact I'm definitely Italian because my dad is like a strong Italian man who comes from a very Italian lineage. I'm mostly
30% British and Irish.
Okay, wait, is this yours? Because it says 30%.
Oh, yeah, it's me again.
Okay.
But you clicked.
I was about to say, that's the exact same. That's pretty crazy. It wouldn't be surprising. She said she has a British grandparent, so it's certainly possible that she may have inherited 30.8%.
Crap out of me. Oh! 45.2% Southeast Asian! Woo!
Yeah, at this time, they might have only defined it as Southeast Asian. I wonder what type of breakdown they'll do, but we see with maternal haplogroup M7b, it'll be really interesting to see her look into that, because with that M7b, that's going to be the purely maternal line, and based on the story she said of it being her mom's mom that's unknown, that's going to be the thing that tells us the most about that line of her mom's mom, at least at this point, based on the little knowledge they have.
That's what I'm talking about!
If you're like,
look how Asian I am! I'm a lady of the world. Look at
Okay.
that. Terry's just here. Look at me. I'm half Asian, 50.3% Southeast. Wait, I'm only 2% Chinese. I'm 1.4% Mongolian, 15% British, 13% Italian.
Yeah, so with these readings, let's go back just a little bit. Yeah, so with these readings, based on what she said, having a British grandparent and an Italian grandparent, it makes a lot of sense. We're getting the 15% representing the British grandparent, 13.5% Italian representing the Italian grandparent, and then all of these other pieces just being representative of both of those. And so it's not really telling much, especially because most of it's broadly.
1.6% French and German. Whoa. What is Iberian? Represented today by the people of Spain and Portugal? I got a little Spanish in me. Whoa. 0.3% broadly sub.
And now we're dealing with all the super small trace results that are under 1%, which 2% is a trace result. At this time, 5 years ago, I'd say 3-4% readings were probably even considered trace results. It's gotten better over time as things have improved, at least for the sites that have done their updates. But when you're looking at 0.3% sub-Saharan African, and especially with someone who has such a mixed ancestry, this is the kind of stuff where very low confidence that it's true doesn't mean that it's not true. It just, like I said, low confidence. It's something that if I was building her tree and I started to build back and started to find something, way back there showing sub-Saharan African, be like, okay, maybe that was true. The other thing is having her mom or dad test and see, do either of them get it as well? Because if neither of them get it, which is not uncommon for people to have these small percentages that they get that neither parent get, then that is a good representation that it's probably a false positive reading.
1% unassigned?
1%.
What do you mean?
That sounds like a big percentage.
1% of just DNA that was so random they didn't have any population groups that they found that commonly associated with. Because these percentages, that's really what they are, is they're just this much of your DNA was correlating to the people that we have defined as this population group. And they define that group by testing a whole bunch of people that all say they have a certain type of ancestry. They find all of the common DNA between those people, and then they use that as the way to match up with your DNA to see what your percentage is. As they test more and more population groups and figure things out much better, it gets better. And yeah, all right, I'm talking in circles now.
I mean, it would answer a lot of questions.
How am I only 2% Chinese? I'm texting my dad. I'm like, Nene is not Chinese.
No, God, this is the kind of stuff that really irks me when people take these DNA tests is like, oh, the reading came out this way, so I'm going to text this person and tell them, nope, they're not Chinese. I would not say that at all. Nothing here would conclude that there's no Chinese ancestry for her grandmother. And even more so, the fact that she's getting 2.3%, and then the other part of it is Southeast Asia. It just called Southeast Asian. And granted, China is not necessarily Southeast Asia. China is more East Asia. But there's obviously a population group connection between Southeast Asia and East Asia. And with the difficulty of reading DNA, and especially with how these English-based DNA tests, I think that's the best way to describe them. So MyHeritage, Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, all of those. These are all the tests where, yeah, they do Asian readings, but the nuances of it and the granularity of it isn't quite that great. And there are Asian-based sites which would be very interesting to see her take. So like 23 Weijin. Gosh, there's one that I always forget about. There's a whole bunch of different ones. There's like 4 or 5 of them in total based in Asia. So there's some based in China, some based in Japan. I think 1 or 2 maybe based in Korea, and I think there was even one based in the Philippines. But those, they focus more on the Asian ancestry, and maybe she'll get better results. But I would be really interested to see what her results are now, because after 5-6 years, they've updated these a lot. No way would I say, yeah, your grandmother has no Chinese ancestry. I mean, for one, this Chinese reading may be coming through her side. And like I said before, if she doesn't know anything really about her family, maybe she had one parent who was Chinese and one parent who was Malaysian, or maybe she had one grandparent who was Chinese, or, something like that, which, at 2.3%, we're not looking super, super far back. I mean, you expect 25% from a grandparent, 12.5% from a great-grandparent, 6.25% from a second great-grandparent, and then 3 point whatever it is from a third, and then less than 2.3 from a fourth great-grandparent. So we'd be looking at about a third or fourth great-grandparent, which means that would be about a great-grandparent to your grandmother, your grandmother's great-grandmother. But being that the rest of her Asian results are also so broadly in what they are, it leaves a lot up to question.
Chinese. I'm texting my dad, I'm like, Nene is not Chinese. It just says Southeast Asian. Like, it doesn't tell me where I'm from. Like, I could be from Indonesia, I could be from Malaysia.
Because these DNA tests are it's too difficult to be able to get that granularity without such high margin of error, because everybody's related. And these population groups that they're defining, they try to go by modern country lines to help out. But the truth is that if you look at how population flow goes, it's more of a geographic limitation than, a cultural limitation. And, culture does cause a limitation, but when you're looking more at the geographic, then you get that idea of, okay, well, that's why everyone throughout Asia, even though there are distinct DNA signatures tied to the different population groups, there is a lot of shared DNA of people throughout Asia. And same thing with Europeans, and same thing with Africans, and same thing with Native Americans. But there's also variation throughout the different groups. And when you get the geography to really add to that, in terms of mountain ranges and just difficulty getting from one area to another. But unfortunately, what she's experiencing is something that a lot of people experience with these tests when they are expecting it to be much more defined and perfect than it really is. That's the thing why people always, when they do say that these DNA tests are a scam and stuff like that, they're talking about this kind of stuff. And it irks the hell out of myself and other genetic genealogists, because we know that this is the least useful part of the DNA test. And there's so much more to the DNA test that you can find your actual ancestry and build your tree and get to the stories. And, it's using this in conjunction with other stuff. So, people look at the DNA test as something to, take, and then you tell me everything, I don't want to do any work. But in reality, if you wanted to get the best information out of it, you need to do some work to it.
I could be 50% Cambodian, and I don't know. Okay, so I could be from Cambodia, Guam, Indonesia, Malaysia. That's what I'm talking about. My mom just said, if my mom isn't Chinese, then who is she? Elite power athletes.
Oh, so you're wasting your time sitting on your ass all day.
Guess what, Jeff? We have the same genetic variant as elite athletes.
Now she's doing something that's really off in saying that what she's getting as her results are exactly what her brother would get. And when it comes to the traits especially, this is where siblings all got very different stuff. I mean, if you were to get the same as your sibling, you'd need to be a twin. And even then, when identical twins take these tests, because of the margin of error and in terms of just reading the DNA, there's a 1% margin of error. But then once you've done that 1% margin of error, then it's got to go through another system to come up with this information that has its own errors as well. So when you have something that's an error being read through one of these other things that has even more errors, you can then cause even more difficulties and stuff like that. So either way, her being like, oh, I'm getting this trait result, brother, you're also getting this. No, that is not the way to do this. He needs to take his own DNA test to get his trait and variant and health results. They don't represent him too.
My mom is denying this test, and she's saying, like, who is my mom then? And, like, my family is having a freak out right now. Okay.
And all because they just don't understand these tests. This is the common thread, and one of the reasons why I started doing these reaction videos is because I watched so many videos of people taking their DNA tests and just me being like, stop thinking that way. Why are you're jumping to conclusions way too quickly, and now everyone's getting all confused and they don't know what's going on. And I mean, basically this is the result of her who doesn't know these DNA tests at all. I mean, obviously from everything she's saying, she has a very, very, very minimal understanding of this. Then relaying information to people who probably know even less because, you know, she probably did a bit of research in the DNA test before she took the video. At least I would hope so, especially since it doesn't seem to be a sponsored video like a lot of the DNA test videos are. But that would then give me the idea that, okay, maybe she looked into stuff, but I doubt her mom did. I'm sure, you know, a lot of the family members have not done it. And so they're going to be even more confused. And so you're basically getting somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about trying to explain results to people who really don't know what they're talking about in terms of the DNA testing stuff.
We are more Middle Eastern than we are Chinese.
Huh. Go to the health part. What are we gonna die from? Yeah.
Yeah, now the health stuff, once again, it's going to be different for siblings. Unless they're identical twins, it's going to be different. So him looking at this, expecting it to be his readings, that's not the case. And that's the other thing too, I say this in all the videos, when it comes to the medical stuff, do not take this as a end-all be-all. If you get something in here saying variant not detected, this does not mean that you have no risk of that disease. As well, if you get things saying variants detected, slightly increased risk, it doesn't mean that you're gonna get that disease. These tests are only testing a few variants, which means basically just they're looking at specific spots on the DNA where they've figured out, okay, if there is this letter of the base pairs, A, C, T, and G, if there's an A here, that's the variant we're looking for that's associated with this disease. So if they find that A on her DNA, okay, variant detected, slightly increased risk. But these are not medically grade tests. If you want to get real information and get actually into this, you need to talk to a true geneticist, a medical doctor who understands this stuff to get actual medical grade testing. And the worst part about these things is just the fact that people will take it as, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about that.
Like these women in Jodhpur belong to a spectacular diversity of maternal lineages that trace back to haplogroup M.
So this is the haplogroup M. This is the one thing in this DNA test that she can conclusively tie to her grandmother. Ancestry percentages stuff that she was like, oh, why am I only getting 2.3% Chinese and not a higher amount that would, you know, correlate to the grandmother we thought was Chinese? Well, you know, with that stuff, like I've said, there's a lot of issues in trying to decipher all of it. But when it comes to the mitochondrial DNA, which is something, you get your mitochondrial DNA from your mother, and she got it from her mother, and she got it from her mother. So when we look at the mitochondrial DNA, that means we can trace back that purely matrilineal line. So while this is only showing one line of her grandmother's ancestry, it does give her a peek into it. Now, this part here showing the residents of India have, you know, lineages tracing back to haplogroup M, that doesn't mean that she's going to have, you know, recent Indian ancestry or anything like that. When you're talking about haplogroups, especially defining it just by the M letters and stuff like that, you're talking about tens of thousands of years ago. So she has a matrilineal ancestor with these women that have haplogroup M in India, but we're talking tens of thousands of years ago. So long time ago, but hopefully she keeps reading and it'll show the more defined subgroup of her mitochondrial DNA, and then that's going to be the best indication of what her grandmother's ancestry, or at least one line of it, was.
Terry's like linked to this like Roman Catholic god named Luke, and I'm linked to these like smiling happy girls in India.
Hey, that's good news.
What?
We could not detect identical DNA segments between you and Terry.
Hello?
Hey Dad, what's up?
Hey, Cassie, what's going on?
Not much. I wanted to talk to you and Mom about this these ancestry results. What if Nana was like 10% Chinese and a bit more of a percent to like from Iran or something?
It's entirely possible. No. Entirely possible. No?
That means that when Nenet says that she is 100% Malay, she's telling the truth.
No, it's not. Stop jumping to conclusions. The honest truth is that she could be Chinese, and just at this time, with the readings of 23andMe, there was a lot of Chinese DNA getting lumped into that Southeast Asia. I said it already, but I would really be interested to see what are her results now, because I would not be surprised if they, you know, if they're very different. And if they really wanted to get a much better idea of what is the ancestry for her grandmother, well, for one, have your mom test. If your grandmother's alive, even better, have her test. But having your mom test will give you a much, much better idea, because you're not dealing with, only 50% of the DNA. You're dealing with all of your mom's DNA, which is 50% of your grandmother's. So instead of Gloom testing, which represents 25%, or 25% of her DNA would then represent the grandmother about. With the mom, 50% of her DNA represents the grandmother. So we're getting a much better clue. And the breakdown may be more nuanced. But they're jumping to too harsh a conclusions here. And I see we have a few more minutes left in the video, so maybe they kind of backtrack or figure things out, or maybe there's like an update or something. This is the kind of stuff that always irks me when I watch these videos. Yeah.
I am more Persian than I am Chinese.
I don't have any family there. No.
Why is she saying Persian? What were the results? Okay, we're at 1303. What were the results? Why does she keep talking about Middle Eastern and Persian and all that stuff? She really didn't show her results well. That's kind of a big problem too. Yeah, I can't find it to be able, for the life of me, to get a spot where I can see any sort of, she's obviously getting readings over here.
No, I don't believe it because I don't have it, Cassie.
I will say the other problem is the mom is like completely blocking off the possibility of she may have ancestry she has no clue about, which you would think she'd understand. Hey, we know zero about my mom's ancestry. Maybe there's some things hiding in there that we don't know about. Yeah, I guess this is something a lot of people deal with when it comes to these DNA tests, is you do have older generations that are like dead set and
I am this and anything else, no. I don't know any relatives who live there, so how could I have that ancestry?
yeah, I don't know. Let's continue.
I admit it, but I don't. Because we don't have an Arab ancestor, no.
Oh, Dad, by the way, you are 4.3% Northwestern European. That's Ireland, Norway, Finland.
And now she's reading her results to say that her dad is... Oh my gosh. Stop using your results as the thing that you tell your family that that's what they are. Oh my gosh.
France. Dad, there's a bit of German in you as well.
Maybe. She got some French and German readings, so maybe he has some German ancestry. Doesn't mean he has German ancestry.
Mom, if I came over to your house and made you spit in a vial, would you let me take your DNA?
No, that's baloney, guys. That's just wasting time.
But it's science, Mom.
It's science. Oh, well, I got nothing to do with science, and science got nothing to do with me.
To me, there's only one way to sell this to the mom, and that would be to say, do you want to find out as much as you possibly can about your mother? If you do, and you're willing to take a DNA test, that's going to tell you more than anything else, unless you're somehow able to develop a paper trail research where you can figure out your mom's or your grandmother's, actual ancestry, whatever. I don't know. I get the whole video is fun and all, but it's just one of these videos that she's not doing it right. She's just jumping to conclusions too harsh. Yeah, it's a lot.
I just wanted to be Malay, which I feel like I am. It's not specific because, the regions change, but, the fact that I'm, 40-something% Southeast Asian, I'm happy about that. But, yeah, it's weird how I'm not Chinese and how I'm more Persian than Chinese, and my mom is not, she's not accepting that idea. I think it's sick, but... And I used to have a clear answer when people say, what's your background? And now I'm just going to say, I don't know, I'm a lot of stuff.
Okay, well, that was a okay video that you could probably tell by the end of it I was not very happy with. I think in a lot of videos I've kind of started to be a bit more abrasive about how they interpret the results. But I guess, I don't know, it's funny watching, I guess, these 4 or 5-year-old videos because... a lot of YouTubers seem to be doing DNA tests about 4 or 5 years ago. That was kind of the big pop of it going on. And everybody was misunderstanding it. And I'm thinking that over time, not just through, reactions like my own, but just because, DNA testing has become much more prominent throughout society altogether, especially with the investigative genetic genealogy stuff. And, you know, people have probably learned a lot more about it, and more people understand some of the difficulties with it than 5-6 years ago. I definitely was just feeling a little bit of anger there with her kind of just saying all these big jump to conclusions of, you know, oh, my grandmother wasn't this and she must have been this. The thing that I would really want to see is, you know, one, are her results updated? And if so, what are they? Two, having her mom actually DNA test to get all of that stuff. But three, what are the DNA matches showing? Because that could be more telling than anything. So as an example, if we looked at her DNA matches and we started to see a lot of people with recent Chinese ancestry, or even almost 100% Chinese ancestry, and, you know, there's a lot of them, that could be representative that, yes, the grandmother truly did have Chinese ancestry, whether or not that was, you know, she was 100% Chinese or 50% or 25% or something else. You know, we're not sure exactly, I guess. You know, that'll take more research, but you may be able to figure that out. And then even more through the DNA matches, building out their trees, expanding your tree, trying to find if they connect. That's the way to really use these tests. And I don't really know how strong the records are in Malaysia, or, you know, where her family came from in Asia, wherever else they may have been from, because that's going to be a big part of it too. If, you know, there's not a lot of records available, you're not going to really have much to work with beyond the DNA. But DNA can still give you enough to start getting something out of it. And if you get your mom tested, she not only will have a better percentage breakdown representing your grandmother and your grandfather, obviously, because it's just her parents, but then her DNA matches are going to be much closer to those sides as well. So you may get better matches to help expand that tree too. As for the boyfriend's DNA results, really typical Northwestern European, like I said. That Southern European was a bit high, or I guess it was Italian specifically, was a bit higher than what you typically see for most Northwestern Europeans. So I'm guessing that, or no, was it Italian or was it French and German? Maybe it was French and German. I think maybe it was French and German, actually. But that French-German may represent an actual French-German ancestor and not just a, you know, typical mixture that we see of Northwestern European, because I say typical mixture of Northwestern European in the sense of no matter what your actual ancestry is, if you're from a Northwestern European background, like whether it's British Isles, Scandinavian, or even kind of more central Northwestern Europe, whatever, you're likely going to be getting percentages of all the other Northwestern European areas because there's so much shared DNA amongst all of those populations. So let's say that you're somebody that you have a family tree built back 500 years on every single line, and almost every single line is either in Britain or Ireland. You're still likely going to find Scandinavian percentages, French-German percentages, maybe even just that typical Northwestern European broadly category, but you're probably going to be getting a mixture, even though for 500 years, every single ancestor of yours was in the British Isles. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that. Hopefully I wasn't too snarky throughout it, because I definitely felt towards the end I was getting a little bit heated, more than I probably should have, especially for how kind of fun of a video it was in a sense. Or I guess I should say a lighthearted video, not necessarily fun. It was aiming to be fun, but really lighthearted. But if you'd like to check out more reactions like this, be sure to check out this one right here. Thank you to my Patreon patrons and YouTube members.